Quite the ride you've been on the last couple of months, right? I mean, you staying busy, moving up the ranks. Give me an idea what this stretch has been like for you.
And it's a blessing. It's kind of funny. After the Contender Series and the debut, we have like a lot of time to sit down, but I'm really enjoying it too. After a layoff for a while, not fighting, now getting to make my debut, now be on part of UFC history on Fight Island. I'm enjoying it all. And I have my dad here, cornering me the first time ever, and experiencing that with him, so it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask you, I mean, obviously a lot of travel. I mean, you're used to, by now, like fighting with no fans and all the system and all that, but, you know, the travel and the being on Fight Island, does this have a different feel or change than the last two fights?
No, the UFC does a great job. I mean, it doesn't feel like anything different than the last two fights. Really, I know there's going to be an octagon on Saturday and Sunday morning here and get ready to get after it. The UFC's made it super smooth, you know, like with the accommodations or understanding of like the time change for the fighters, and the, you know, traveling out early really helped, and the plane was amazing. The Etihad fight, you know, first class, like just I fell asleep more than anything. So it was a great trip, and I'm ready to get after it now.
Very cool. Talk about the matchup itself. Did you know much about him? Did you have to look him up? Did you watch his debut? What did you think?
For sure, yeah. So I watched Joaquin's debut, and I watched one of his LFA fights, you know, and everything I could find on the internet. He's a good fighter. You know, he comes to fight. I like that. He definitely wants to throw bombs. He wants to get in there and mix it up. And he tries to bring that intensity in the octagon. For me, I love it because, you know, I love guys who come to fight, like not going to back down, and, you know, get to pull it all together, you know, pull out the whole toolbox. And I'm ready to claim this victory. But, man, I think it's like, it feels more like home now. You know, the first fight, you're like, okay, we're in the UFC now. You know, you're fighting Maki. Better be smart. But now it's like, okay, now I know I belong here, and it's like, let's get going.
That's awesome. I imagine like fighting frequently, like, you know, making some paychecks probably a good thing, as you said. You know, getting. But I always hear too that, you know, like when you get better is between camps, when you're not preparing for an opponent or you're not. So what do you think? I mean, do you want to keep this kind of crazy pace moving forward, or do you need some time in between?
For sure, yeah. I'd love to keep this pace. I would like to fight maybe 7 times before the end of the year, like 8 times now. What total? Last year, but when I first started fighting, it was 6 fights in 7, almost 8 months. And that for me, it's like, I always had like a challenge. Like people are like, oh, you can't get better between this, can't get better in camp. I'm like, I believe you can get better on fight week. Depends like how much you focus in. And I actually think on fight week you have like a different kind of focus, right? Like you can do your best to have this kind of focus all year, and maybe we can replicate that one day. But the amount of attention you pay to your, you know, attention to detail is so critical, you know, on fight week, that I think you have the opportunity to keep getting better and getting better and getting better. And for me, it's like I had to do that because from one fight, I had my pro debut, then I had 2 fights in a month, and I had a bunch of fights back after that. Then I had my Contender Series fight. The longest life I had between fights, like 2 months between my Contender Series fights, the first one. And I was like, well, I have to get better. So my coach says you put necessity in the organism, and then you'll see it grow. And that's the truth. So for me, it's like, let me keep getting better, let me keep training. And we saw it between, at least I believe, you can tell me I'm wrong, the Contender Series and then my UFC debut. And I plan to show more improvements this fight too.
That's awesome, man. Well, lastly for me, what's the goal here? I mean, is it just picking up a win and moving forward, or do you feel like you want to prove something or show something? What's the plan?
The goal here is to claim victory, do what I love to do, finish a fight. That's what I'm here to do, man. I believe we can do it. I believe there are opportunities, but man, really, it's go there, fight, leave a fight that there are no questions asked after. Whether it is a decision, I was pushing for the finish, tried to get it last time, didn't get it, but really go out there and do what I love. Do what I love. You know, honor God, do my job, and move forward. Enjoy it with my dad and Brian and Diego. It's cool to have them too, you know, 2 Latin American fighters. So Hispanic Heritage Month, it's been pretty cool to have them here.
Did I read somewhere you have 3 degrees?
I do. I have an associate's in business administration accounting, and I have my bachelor's in accounting and bachelor's in finance.
So you're pretty set after when you hang up your gloves.
For sure. I'm working on it. You know, my parents have always valued education for sure. Back home, where they're from in Congo, it's like sports aren't like they are in Western culture. You don't play sports and then kind of keep moving up really unless you go to Europe to play soccer. But the one thing they always had was education. So for me, having my degrees, having those opportunities, it's not even like a fallback, but I always know I don't have to fight, so I can definitely give my all, because when I'm going to do it, I have to commit to it. It's not like I'm going to just use that as like an excuse of why I'm not training or something like that. I know that I have this, but I want to be the best in what I'm doing.
Did you get your degrees before you pursued a pro career in MMA?
Yes, sir. So I didn't start fighting until my last semester of college. So anything, like jiu-jitsu, boxing, wrestling, kickboxing, Muay Thai, anything. So only pretty much 3 years ago now, I started that my last semester going in, and I wanted to get better at football. Found out that I love mixed martial arts and fighting, and that's kind of I ran with it. I had a job. I was working at this company called Avid Exchange in Charlotte. It's a financial technology company. after a couple months of working, after I graduated school, I was like, this is not for me. And I told my parents I left. I went to the local grocery store. And ever since then, it's been train, fight, and keep it going.
What were your parents' reaction when you said you wanted to pursue a career in cage fighting?
So, well, my parents are awesome. And the funniest thing is, like, I went to my parents' room and I told them I'm gonna fight, and my mom was like, "Talk to your son." And my dad was like, "Wait, back to the grocery store." But they were at the same time super supportive. They're like, "Okay, if you're gonna do this, you got to give it your all." And they let me stay home. They didn't kick me out. Thank you for that. And they every single day, they just challenged me. They pushed me to be better. And they knew if I was gonna let go of that awesome job that I had in accounting, which I was really appreciative of, that I had to make the most of fighting. And they came to every single fight. You could hear my dad cheering from, like, it doesn't matter if it's in the nosebleeds or to, like, the front row, and you feel them with you. So they've been awesome. I just remember, I think it was a shock too, because I didn't tell them that I was leaving. I just kind of left and then went to their room and said, "Yes, I'm going to this grocery store, Harris Teeter, back home." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not working there anymore. I'm going to focus on fighting." And I was still an amateur at the time, so that was definitely. I haven't had my second fight yet.
Well, I think Israel Adesanya had a similar story. He convinced his parents he described it as getting his master's degree in ass kicking. Okay, you can go with that.
I like that.
I was going to ask, you mentioned that heightened focus of fight week, without being too sort of melodramatic. Is that the bit like a fighter lives for?
Oh,
to sort of get into that zone and be like, fuck, anything I can do.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, when you get that heightened focus on fight week, you're like, thank you. It's like you get a little bit more opportunity to capitalize. Like, I really like the fact that we're quarantined. Not the fact that there's COVID. I hate that for people. But I remember before I was in the UFC, watching Fight Island and thinking, like, man, how cool. I was talking to my dad, how cool would it be to be on Fight Island? And he's like, man, if you go, I'll go out there with you. And then he's here with me now. But I remember working out at home. I would go to my front yard and I go to my backyard. I'd do pull-ups in my tree, do my workouts in the driveway. But when you're quarantined and you're isolated, you have opportunity to focus strictly on what you're doing, or you can go the other route and not focus on it at all. On Fight Week, like, you have nothing. There's no other reason for me to be out here. The only reason I'm here is to fight. Like, Fight Island's great, the beach is great, the pictures are great, but when I'm out there, I'm here to do my job. And when I get that opportunity to not even be accessible, like, I think at home you're more accessible. Like, your friend needs you, this, that, and the third. You have almost the least amount of you have no distractions, really, because the UFC provides. Like, all you really do is sit in your room. They bring your food to your room. Trifectas, they don't have to cook. I could just be in the same sweats all week if I really wanted to be. And I realized, like, having less really gives me more time to focus on what I'm doing. And then every fighter, I believe, lives for that. At least I know I do. I'm like, man, this is awesome, because those little adjustments you remember in a fight. I remember even a couple of fights, they'll say, like, hey, remember this? And we just talked about it in the locker room. And you just see it work in the fight. It's always a great feeling. So, that focus paid off.